Welcome to the Hot Rod Podcast with Ron Foreman and Brady Wright. We're the guys who eat, breathe, and live cars. Ron is the president and founder of the Rat Bastards Car Club and a longtime builder of awesome hot rods. Brady is the founder of the Idaho State Hot Rod Hall of Fame, a producer of car shows all across the Northwest, and the builder of the only rat rod ice cream truck in the state.
Hi, welcome to the show. This is number 376. Before we get started, take a moment to hit the share and like buttons and be sure to subscribe on YouTube and Facebook.
Right on. Well, let's see what we got going on today because we got two guests, count them, two, and they're both in the same club, so this ought to be fun. Let's bring them in. Hey, and as promised, we have count them, two special guests tonight, and by way of quick introduction, Lance Lambert is here. Lance is former and I guess current host of the Vintage Vehicle Show, a collector of all kinds of unusual cars over the years, and of course one of the founding members of the Steeds Car Club, I think one of the oldest clubs in Western Washington, if I'm not mistaken. And also with us is David Dickinson. David's a Steed. David is also the creator and compiler, did I say that right, of the Old Car Nut book series. And that's of course the home. We'll talk about this maybe another time, but the book number 2 is the home of the true story of the Hot Rod Lincoln. So, guys, thanks for coming. Glad to have you. We're talking about car clubs, and obviously we all love cars, and car clubs are a huge part of the sport or the hobby, whatever you call it. But the hobby's kind of suffering from a little shortage of young rodders. So, clubs and meets and cruise-ins and cars and coffees have a huge effect on them. And we got a bunch of questions for you. Ron's got a whole bunch to start off with. So, Ron, it's all you.
How you guys doing? Long time no see.
Yeah, doing great.
Good. So, question, Lance, is what do you see the car club and the car hot rodding community in the future? How much do you see is going to be changing in the near future or farther out?
Well, I don't have good news.
Yeah.
I know of a few clubs here locally in the Northwest that have just folded up because they just don't have the people young enough and willing enough to keep them going, and the incoming members are far less than the outgoing members, whether they're just too old and it's difficult for people to go to meetings or they passed away. So, I don't know how you turn that around because we all see at car clubs and I know the three of you guys pretty well, and we all kind of play by the same rules and dance to the same music in that we see car shows dwindling and different things happening. So to get the younger people interested in our cars, which doesn't seem to be happening. A little aside to that, the Steeds Car Club been going since 1962, but one of our newest members is 19 years old, so we're pretty excited about that.
That's awesome.
He's got a C10 pickup, and he's and another thing, we might be more inclined, some of us, to encourage membership from teenagers or young adults that might not be driving a car that we would want to drive, but it's what they want to drive. So that would be a shot in the arm for the clubs.
So how does it work for families? So like your wife or your daughters or your brothers or your sisters? Are they able to join with you, or do they have to go through the prospects system as well, or do you have a prospect system?
Steeds, our standards are very low, so
you let me in, so
yeah. Well, there you go. There's proof. With the club, and it's different with various clubs. There, you can see. I won't name the club, but you can see right behind me. There is a T-shirt I have framed with the signatures of a whole bunch of members
right over here, yeah,
of a club that's been around longer than the Steeds, and they are very strictly no wives, no girls, no nothing. And in fact, we have a couple of members of the Steeds that joined because that club wouldn't let them in. But the Steeds itself, If a guy joins, his wife is automatic, or girlfriend or whoever is drafted into the club. They are considered members, and we have something a little bit different maybe than some clubs. We have a group called the Lady Steeds, and and it's a big deal to the wives. They're about, on a bad day, 8, on a good day, maybe 15, 20 of the women get together every month for lunch, and they're, I'd be insulting to call them lady auxiliary, but that's, they're that, but they're also very active in the group. And we absolutely prefer to have if the guys join, to have their wives or significant others participate in the club.
Well, I know a couple of those women, and I mean, they're a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Probably real good behind the scenes organizers and in front of the scenes organizers of stuff that goes on at the club. So that's a
Hey,
valuable
Mark.
way to get everybody involved.
hmm I'll do a shout out for Elizabeth Kitely. She's been in the club for quite a while, and man, she's a mover and a shaker. I refer to her as our chief cheerleader. So
Yes.
she gets the ladies going.
Can I interject for a moment?
Sure, Dave.
Absolutely.
Well, I anticipated the question about, what do you see for the future? And I think a lot of it has to do with attitude and maintaining a positivity about the future. I made some notes, so let me just go over those.
Go for it.
Absolutely.
There's millions of Americans that are involved in this, and you know, don't feel that the new cars have much of a soul compared to the old cars. Um, at car shows or around our own cars, time almost stands still for a moment. And we kind of take ourselves back to simpler times. And so if we can retain that, that would be good. And I wondered to myself, do legislators really think that they're going to keep old cars off the road? I can't imagine that. There's magazines and books and writers and readers and all of those that are deeply involved with the cars that aren't going to let that happen. I don't believe. They may try, but I don't think it'll happen. So I just hope that everything remains the same as it is, and that we can instill the passion that we have had since we were young in our younger people. We want to get them and keep them involved. And they may generate or navigate to the newer muscle cars or the rice burners, but I hope that the hobby continues.
So, David, you brought something up. I just have a real quick question regarding. I know you're talking about the legislation in Washington State where they're, wanting you to have insurance on your collector vehicle and prove that you have a daily driver, so the collector thing is validated. What I understand about that, and maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that the legislature passed it, but it wasn't signed by the governor yet in Washington. Is that still the case, or did he sign it?
I haven't been following that because when I first read it, I thought, well, I have a daily driver. I have insurance on my cars. I'm not worried about what they're doing along those lines. What I was addressing more was what they're trying to do down in California.
Right.
Because California is a major hub of the hobby.
Always has been.
So is Arizona.
Yeah.
So I don't know what all they're doing other than, I'm aware that they're trying to get the old cars off the road. And I don't understand the logic. Where is that coming from? Who wants to do this? Why is this a problem for them?
Yeah. I don't understand that either. Although I do know that in Japan, which I don't know if this is relevant or not, but they charge you more each year older your car gets. And there's a point where if your car is old enough, only the really rich people can have a 25-year-old car. The junkyards are full of late model cars because it's cheaper to junk them than to just try to pay the road tax or whatever.
Yeah, that's so silly.
I don't know. Ron, what else you got?
So where are the Steeds located, and how does one get a hold of you or contact you if they would want to be a member of these young people or someone that wants to be a Steed?
Okay. Can I give you the history of the club?
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, when I was 14 years old, in Tacoma. The Toppers Car Club, the official name was the Tacoma Toppers. They were the club in Tacoma. They were the top of the pecking order. They put on the car shows, they put on the dances, they did all, that's the club to be in. And at 14, I started going to their meetings. Somebody picked me up in a yellow bullet nose Studebaker and took me to the
All
meeting.
right.
It was mostly Lincoln High School guys. And, they were old. They were like 18, 17, and I was just 14. And so I went to the meetings and they were nice. They were great. And at age 15, I said, well, I really want to be a member. And they said, well, you can't because you're not 16 yet, but you can start the junior toppers. And I was so insulted that that was the last meeting I went to. And I went home and I called up four of my buddies, and the five of us, man, we decided to start a car club. We had a heck of a time coming up with a name, and there was a copy of Ivanhoe. So the five of us sat around. We were trying to figure out a name for the club, and we just weren't coming up with anything. And in the garage, there was a book, Ivanhoe book laying there, and I just casually picked it up and started leafing through it. And I saw the word Steeds, and I thought Steeds, horsepower, and that might work. And I threw it out, and we were so desperate at that point for a name that yeah, that'll work. That's fine. And then I did what I thought was a real smooth move. I kind of manipulated the situation to make sure that when we decided who were the officers, a buddy, one of our, to this day closest friends, is Bob Dylan, just like the singer, and he was the big man on campus. In the ninth grade, we were all 15, 16 years old. In the ninth grade at Jason Lee Junior High School, Bob was the man.
Right.
And the girls were crazy for him, and the guys all respected him. Excuse me. And I thought, if Bob is president, that'll give us instant credibility. So we made sure he was president, and it's exactly what happened. And that there was no slow start on the Steeds. It just took off. It was mostly almost entirely Stadium and Wilson High School guys, and
right on.
everybody wanted to join. And we usually had about 15 members or so, and we had great coats and great plaques and calling cards, and we were a real club. So
That's awesome.
yeah. And I started that out to answer a question you had, and I don't remember now what the question was.
Where you were located and how you become a member.
Tacoma. Yeah. Wilson High School, Stadium High School, Tacoma. Yeah.
Right on.
And this was back in what, 1936,
Summer of
37?
Yeah, we rode horses. We had one horse.
Nice.
Yeah,
Steeds
that's why
Club.
Steeds, of course. Yeah.
Summer of 62.
Nice.
Oh, nice. Very nice.
That
That's
was,
about the first-
those years were like the highlight of the beginnings of the car culture. Not the beginnings, but
right.
it was hot right then. I mean, the Beach
good
Boys and
time.
everything were happening then, and all those things kind of gelled together, and car clubs became a thing across the country.
Yeah.
That was the year that I first drove a car.
Was
I was
it?
11 years old. It was
Right
quite an adventure.
That's cool. Well, listen, we got to take a real quick commercial break here. We got two of these things to do, so let's get this one out of the way. We'll come back and continue on. The Idaho Hot Rod Hall of Fame is the only nonprofit organization that rewards men and women who actively promote the hot rod community, clubs, and builders all over the state of Idaho. Each year at our September awards banquet, we award a Hot Rodder of the Year, a Young Rodder of the Year, and Car Club of the Year, as well as giving out scholarship money to students in the auto trades programs at local colleges. If you want to nominate an honoree, go to idahof.org, our website, or you can email us or message us through our Facebook page. Well, as mentioned, thanks to the words of our sponsor, and Ron, we're back talking about car clubs and what the future of the sport is going to be. Go for it.
Well, That's about, I get, how many members do you have, Lance?
Right now on paper, I David, you can check me on this. I think we have about 80 on paper, and we have
Yeah, it's
about
about right.
50,
Yeah.
about 50 that we see, and about 30 that we see a lot, and
Yeah.
about 15 that we can't get rid of. They show up for everything. So it's a
Yeah,
very strong club.
requirement.
We have 1 to 2 events a month. We like to do tours of car collections and
Yeah.
breweries, and of course everything, always ends up with too much food. We're always we still are mostly around Tacoma, even though I live in Seattle, and we like to go to the Cloverleaf or Hanks, and we have helped keep those two establishments in business.
Well, that's very charitable of you to do that. I have a question.
You,
Really, it's kind of we've talked now to several different clubs, and we got some more on the process here. But what do the Steeds do to encourage young riders to get into the sport?
There's nothing, hey, members, we're going to do this or that. But the one thing that's real common with us, and I think a lot of people, is you're at a car show or at a Cars and Coffee or whatever, and a mom and dad come through with their 2 or 3 kids, and you just be as nice to those kids and the family as you can. And you sit in your car, let them ask questions, and I will, on occasion, take a pile of magazines and make those available. And I've even had opportunity to hand out some die-cast cars. I've thrown them in a box and put them in the back, and the kid shows interest, and most of the time, the kids, they just light up. It's Christmas
yep,
for them. You give them, that car, and that might be what does it. And there's a guy in the Northwest. He drives a van, a Econoline van that's kind of jazzed up, but he's big into Hot Wheels, and he has boxes and boxes of Hot Wheels, and just lets the kids go nuts in there. I think that's a really great way to
very cool.
peak.
That's most kids' first hot rod.
Yeah.
Well, and there's a lot of stories out there about people that say that's exactly how they got started. Somebody was nice to them and treated him right and gave him time and a gift, like a little toy car, or took him for a ride, any
Mhm.
number of things.
Yeah, there was a guy that lived a block from me, and he was old. He was like 19 or 20 when I was a much younger, and he drove a really cool Chrysler 300. I think it was a 57, 58, a white one. And when he started that thing up, and it was, this guy was God. I mean, it's, someday when
Nice.
I be his age, I hope I'm as cool as he is. So,
Didn't most of
Very
those
cool.
get turned into yachts?
yeah, land yachts, yeah.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
Well, there's lots of clubs that have a particular style. Maybe there's a Mustang club or a Corvette club or a land yacht club or whatever. I know the Steeds kind of let everybody play if they're interested in cars in general. Um, do you think that young people coming in should have a particular kind of car? I mean, are you pushing them towards, well, if you have an import, we'd kind of like to see in an American car. Is there any of that? Because I know some clubs do that. I don't think the Steeds do, but let's talk
If
about that for a second.
if some guy, some 18, 19, 20, whatever, comes in with his, I don't know the imports that well, but his Nissan, whatever, I would welcome with open arms, and I think just him being or her being exposed to a group of people that are driving 40s and 50s and 60s American cars might make him look at that Nissan and go, wow, but I really like that guy's 50 Ford, or that guy's, maybe someday I can have a 57 Chev or whatever. And if they
Yeah.
don't, it'll be good for us to, broaden our horizons a little bit, and take a look at
Hmm.
that kid's car and make him feel good about it. And we might even learn something from him.
Yeah,
We, we've all
absolutely.
had dozens of cars, so there's always the next car.
Mhm.
Yep. Yep. There is. Well, and David, you'll appreciate. I know that you've had British cars and Italian cars, and back in the Bay. One of my club members has an MG midget I don't know the year, but it's a 68, 69, something like that. And they were kind of all the same for about 15 years. And he said, I don't really have a hot rod, but I do have this MG Midget. And I said, bring it. Come on in. They're fun. They're easy to work on. We can have a shop day. And I personally, I'm all about, and I think you guys are too, let them come, bring them. I don't care what they've got. Bring your Volvo. It's all good because you'll see, that we're okay with that. And maybe you'll be, like Lance said, you'll be okay with, getting a 54, Chevy or a Pontiac or something like that. Or maybe you'll see, hey, there's a lot of similarities between this four-cylinder and that four-cylinder. And, that's how the love of the sport starts, I think.
Yeah, I've had cars my whole life. I mean, I grew up fantasizing about having a car when they used to bring out the new cars when I was a kid, and now those are all old. But yeah, we all get interested at different times for different reasons about different cars, and the tastes are broad. Again, it goes back to accepting the individual and what they're focused on, and getting involved.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to ask Ron this, and yeah, I think I know the answer, but I'm going to ask anyway. Wasn't one of your first cars, Ron, that 55 or 56 Chevy Shorty?
My first car was a 1957 Volkswagen Beetle.
Okay, but you had,
Yeah, and
so where did you go with that car, for example, that got you to the next one, that got you to the next one? Did
oh,
you?
it's we got how much time you got?
Well, but I mean, you hung around with some guys who were like-minded, right?
Right. Well, my cousin had the 55.
Okay.
He was building that. He traded he traded like a Nissan for that back in the early 70s. And I loved that car. I fell in love with that little 55 Shorty. And I was bucking hay over in Chelan, Eastern Washington, with my uncle. And there were cars back then. There were cars abandoned all over in the woods, in the mountains around the Inchelium, and I found a 1926 Essex
Mm.
5-window coupe, and I showed him pictures of it, and I told him, "Would you trade me this for that 55 Chevy?" And he jumped all over it.
I
So I
bet.
got the 55 Chevy, and he got the 5-window Essex. That's how I got the Shorty.
Well, the
No
reason I
motor or tranny or nothing. There was no motor or tranny, but there wasn't in the Essex either. I brought it back over to my uncle's and finished the summer bucking hay with him. We got a motor and tranny put in there, and I drove it back home to Longview, Tulsa.
the reason I asked you about the Shorty was that was one of your earlier cars. I've seen pictures of it.
Yes,
It's been, all over the
yes.
place. And just recently, you decided you were going to relive that whole thing by buying and making another one. And
Well, that's another story on
how many
the
years
short.
between?
Oh man, I've had I bought the 56 that I have now in 1989
Yeah.
on the side. It was on sitting on the side of the road from a guy out here in Gold Bar, and I bought it, drug it home. I got my son-in-law interested in it, and he started working on it, and then he got burned out on it because it was taking too long, costed too much. He liked his little Honda. So I ended up selling it to Rod Hill, and Rod Hill turned it into a gasser, and he was moving. He moved to Arizona. I think it was Arizona or Tennessee, and he told he had it for sale at the Greenwood Night Show a couple of years ago, but he was just selling the body and he's putting the chassis underneath the Jeep. So I bought the chassis. I bought the body from him for $1,000, but I ended up spending another $1,000 on headlights, dash, windshield, not windshield, but doors, um, tail lights, all the other stuff he was going to take to the swap meet. But I said, no, I need that stuff. Don't sell that. Throw that in. No, I'm not throwing it, but I'll sell it to you. So I ended up buying all that stuff too. So it's like around $2,000. I got it all. It's at home, but I didn't have a frame. So I got the frame. I was at a car show looking at admiring a 55 Chevy two-door post at 210 or 110. And I was talking to the guys. Yeah, I got a 56 Shorty now. I need a frame. I need a chassis. Well, I got a Nomad chassis At home, I said, well, what do you want for it? She said, $100. So I got a rolling chassis for $100. It's under my shorty now, so it's waiting. I'm building my Apache right now, so I'm waiting until I get the Apache done. Start
And
working on that.
how cool is it to realize, have this a very similar car twice? That's kind of cool. And I bet you that if you hadn't gotten involved in, hot rodding in general, that kind of thing would never happen. And I'm going to point to Lance because I know very few people who've owned more vehicles than Lance. You just bought another one, did you not? That was a 65 T-Bird?
48 hours ago, I
40.
became the owner of a absolutely showroom, unbelievable, restored, gorgeous 65 T-Bird.
See, one of my good friends
Nice.
had a 64, so I saw it. I made it, it made me think back. But that kind of thing, you have the ones that speak to you for some reason or another, whatever, I mean, you've had you've had a lot of orphan cars, Casper was one of my favorites and some of the other, I'm not going to say oddball, unusual cars,
Hey,
off-brands.
oddball or weird.
And
That's
the cars. But that's what kind of makes the hobby, pop for us. Cool. Well, listen, I do have to take a break. Let me do this real quick and we'll come back and see if we can wrap this up. There's a great new family-oriented nonprofit car club in Idaho.
We're the Rat Bastards, and we want you.
Welcome all hot rods, 1969 or earlier, and orphans.
And the rough is enough.
Rat Bastards. Real steel and iron hot rods.
We are the Rat Bastards, and we want you.
We're all about old school hot rods and rat rods.
We get together, help each other build, and cruise like crazy.
Because that's the way car clubs are supposed to be.
Join us for cruisings all over Idaho and Washington.
Joining the club is easy.
A bunch of rat bastards.
Contact us through our club Facebook page or come talk to us at any event.
We have cruisings on the first and third Saturday of every month.
Check out our Facebook page for information.
Email us at ratbastardsidaho@gmail.com.
Rat Bastards!
We're charter sponsors of the Idaho State Hot Rod Hall of Fame and the Hot Rod Podcast.
Crap bastards.
Rat Bastards.
In the rough is enough.
It's not what you buy, it's what you build.
It's not what you buy, it's what you build.
It's not what you buy, it's what you build.
It's not what you buy, it's what you build.
It's the most fun you can have with your clothes on.
It's the most fun you can have with your clothes on.
The most fun you can have with your clothes on.
So this has been fun. And David, you said you had a quick story to tell?
Yeah, it has to do with, different generations accepting different things back when we were kids and all that. When I was growing up, my dad had a 56 Chev 210. It was a six-cylinder three-speed, and he swore that nobody needed anything more than a six-cylinder three-speed. Well, in 67, I bought my first car, and I paid $150 for it. It was a 56 Chev two-door Bel Air with a V8 automatic. Boy, was he pissed.
They get out running.
Yeah.
So again, just the difference in what each generation wants and expects.
Yeah. Well, that's great. I think, all of the clubs that we've talked to so far have said that, getting younger people into the sport is a challenge. We know that it's something that we've got to work on. Welcoming, of course, is really easy. And the whole point of the car culture and cars in general is that it's supposed to be fun. So whatever we can do to make it fun, I think, that's the key to it. But I'm sure open to any other ideas that any of you guys have to perpetuate this thing, because we really hate to see it die. Like Lance said earlier, some of the clubs are just kind of aging out, and that's too bad.
Yeah.
I had an idea. So the football season's going to be coming around this next spring, and then basketball is going right now. Get a bunch of guys together, drive your hot rods to a basketball game, high school basketball game, and or the volleyball games. Get a little exposure. Go to these young people. They're not going to come to us. Let's go to them. Just an idea.
That's not a bad idea.
Not a bad idea.
That's not a bad.
Brady,
There's a couple of clubs over here that sponsor scholarship stuff for the various high schools, especially the auto trades programs, and they take their cars out for essentially a cars and coffee at the school. And that's a great, and it's easy. And you're going to go out and hang out anyway. Might as well hang out where young people are.
Yeah, I did that at Ingram High School here in Seattle till they closed the program. But I'd take a pile of magazines and an old car, and it was a hit.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
Right on.
Does anybody go to the Fuel Up Cruise night?
I have not. Of course, I'm a ways away now.
Yeah.
Bob McConnell went.
Okay.
Yeah.
I went once last year. It was just like going back to the 60s and cruising.
Oh, right on.
Nice.
It was just like it.
Cool.
That's super.
So they do it every Friday night in Puyallup?
I don't know about every Friday night, but maybe it is every Friday. But they're doing it on a regular basis.
Cool.
And the city's behind it. The police aren't getting harassing people or anything. It's people hang out in the parking lots along the street, watch the cars go by, and it's really cool.
Nice.
That sounds really nice.
Well, bringing back organized cruises, would especially, through towns, through the cities, that's a great way to do it because, it's like being in a parade and it's like watching a parade and all these cars. It just stimulates people's, desire and imagination. What a good deal. That's a win every time I can see it. Well, hey, fellas, we're getting down to the end. Listen, I want to thank Lance Lambert for coming on. Lance and I have known each other for a while, but you've always been real kind to get involved in our shows. And, I know that episodes of the Vintage Vehicle Show are still online. So if you want to really have some fun, you can go look at that, especially the ones with Dennis Gage in them, because they're always fun. Dennis is coming to a show over here not too long away. He's going to be up at Lost in the 50s in Sandpoint, about a month and a half away. So that should be fun. And David, always a pleasure, young man, to see you. I know that you can still get copies of the Old Car Nut book. And please, if you do decide to do it, get book 2 first so you can get the true story of the Hot Rod Lincoln, because it's still one of our favorites. And I have to tell you,
absolutely,
every year
they're all standalone books. So
yeah, every year for Christmas we replay that show, and it's still one of our highest watched, our highest viewership shows. So it's a good one.
Cool. Well, I think I've mentioned to you anytime that if you want, I'll read it. So
yeah, we should do that. Let's work on that one. We got some time before Christmas.
Real quick reminder. I didn't write that story other than having interviewed Bob Davidson. I wrote it for him, but it's Bob Davidson's story.
Yep.
That's cool.
Yeah, and it goes through that in the book too. It's very clear, and it's a wonderful take. I just feel lucky to have been in the same part of the country where that happened, even though it was before I knew that much about it. But that song that brought a lot of us into the hobby.
Well, like you said, most people don't know the story. How many people know that car in its newest form originated in the Northwest?
Yep, exactly.
Not a lot of people know that.
And that even the guy that wrote the song, geez, I forgot his name already.
Charlie
Ryan. Even Charlie didn't do much to put that car together.
Yeah.
When they found it, it was sitting in a shed with parts from the old Lincoln around the car.
Yep.
So,
well, that's going to be we'll have to do another show on that one. We can do one on the background to the story, because that'd be fun too.
Yeah.
Well, listen, fellas, it's time to go. I really appreciate you coming by, and this show will be up pretty soon. You can watch it on YouTube or on Facebook as many times as you want. Contact information will show up down below. Ron, always a pleasure. Lance, David,
you too, sir.
Thank you much.
Thank you.
Look forward to seeing your car, Lance.
That's it for this episode of the Hot Rod Podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe to our show, and we appreciate it if you smash those notification buttons too, so you'll know when a new one drops. For Ron Foreman, I'm Brady Wright. This has been the Hot Rod Podcast. We'll see you on the next one.